Here are some tips and tricks for the Granny's Fireside stocking. Pattern now available on my Etsy. So the toe of the stocking is pretty straightforward, so follow the pattern for that. But when we're starting the body of the stocking, you're gonna tie in your first color into any back loop you'd like, pull loop through, and then you're gonna chain 2, and then do 2 double crochets in that same back loop. And that's gonna create our first granny stitch. Then you're gonna skip 2 stitches, and again in the back loop of that third stitch you're going to do 3 double crochets, which you might know as a granny stitch. So here's the third double crochet, and skip another 2, and we're just going to repeat that across. So granny stitch, skip 2, granny stitch, and we're going to repeat that around the toe. So I'm going to meet you at the join. So to join, we are going to insert our hook into that initial chain 2 space and do a slip stitch. And then I'm going to pull that loop so it's loose. So for the color change, this is going to be a trick for the color change. I tie in that space and then pull a loop through of the new color through that loosened loop of our first color and tighten it. And then we're going to insert our hook into the space between the 2 granny stitches. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. That'll count as your first stitch, and then you're going to chain 2 more. And then do 2 double crochets in that same space to create your granny stitch in the second color. And then across in between each granny stitch, you'll do a granny stitch in the second color. So that's what you're going to see me doing here. So 3 double crochets, and I'm going to repeat that around again, and I will meet you at the join for the second color. So joining the second color, very similar to how we joined the first color, we're going to insert our hook into that initial chain space and do a slip stitch, loosen that loop, and then go back to your first color and pull loop through that loosened loop of that new color and then tighten it. And then insert your hook into the space between the granny stitches, pull loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then chain 2. That's going to count as your first double crochet. You'll do 2 more double crochets to create that granny stitch, and then again repeat around the body of the stocking and keep doing the color change. Here is the important timestamp for how to do that color change. So next up is the heel. You're gonna loosen that color you just finished with last so you don't lose it, and then we're gonna tie into the back loop 3 granny stitches away from the edge into the middle stitch. So you see me in the back loop of the middle stitch of the 3rd granny stitch from the right edge. And then I'm gonna flip my project over just because I crochet from right to left. We're gonna pull a loop through and we're going to chain 2. And that's going to serve as a half double crochet. Then you're going to yarn over, and we're technically now in the front loop doing half double crochets around the back edge of your stocking. So you see me here doing my half double crochets in the front loop, and I'm going to repeat this around my stocking. So keep going. Just speeding through because it's pretty simple to do a half double crochet in the front loop. And then I'm going to fold my project in half. You should end in the middle stitch of the 3rd granny stitch on the other side, but I'm folding it in half just to make sure it matches up. Then we're going to turn our project, insert our hook into the stitch your loop is coming from, and do a single crochet. And then you're going to insert your hook into the bottom loop of the single crochet and do a slip stitch. And that creates your half double crochet. And then we're going to continue half double crochets in each stitch around to the other side. If you need the timestamp for how to do that edge again, here it is. So important to make sure you don't miss that last stitch. They should have the same number in each row. And then we're going to do the turn again. So single crochet insert your hook into the bottom loop of the single crochet, slip stitch, which creates a half double crochet. Again, we are going to be doing half double crochets in each stitch. Please refer to the pattern for how many stitches to do before we do this decrease, but I'm going to walk you through the half double crochet decrease. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the front loop of one stitch and the back loop of the second stitch that you're combining. So yarn over, front loop of one, back loop of the other, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. If you need to see that again, here is the timestamp. Please note that this is a tips and tricks video, so I am walking you through the more difficult parts of the pattern. So here are the timestamps for those and their description. So I am going to continue on this heel, and I will show you next how to join. To join the heel together, I insert my hook into the inside loops on both sides. So that's the back loop on one and the front loop on the other, but the inside loops, and do a slip stitch to join. So that is what you see me doing here, and I'm just going to speed through them since I have a couple slowed down. And then I'm just going to tie and secure my end and then go back to my granny stitches. So I'm doing my color change. Here's the timestamp if you need that slowed down, and switching back to my red. Again, timestamp right here if you need to see how to do that slow. So I'm doing my granny stitch in the spaces, and then I'll show you what you need to do when you get to your heel. So I'm just going to continue granny's stitches around to this spot here. So we are going to do 3 sets of granny stitches on each side. If you'd like, you can use stitch markers to kind of show and even them out. I kind of just eyeball it, but it's completely up to you. But basically you need to do 3 sets of granny stitches on each side of the heel you created. And that replaces the 3 sets of granny stitches that you connected the heel to. So I'm just finishing the last granny stitch. So my last double crochet, and now I'm just going to go back to doing my granny stitches in the space between my previous round and join. Again, this is a tips and tricks video, so I'm not going to show you how to do the body. That's pretty straightforward in the pattern. And we are going to skip ahead to doing the ribbing on top. So you're going to insert your hook into the back loop of any stitch you'd like, pull through and tie it in. Then you're going to pull loop through and do the designated number of chains noted in the pattern. So I'm just going to speed through that. And then you're going to skip the first stitch and do a single crochet in the back loop and do single crochets in the back loop all the way across. And that should end with 10 total single crochets. So I'm just speeding through that. Then to connect to the stocking, you're going to insert into the next stitch back loop and do a slip stitch. And you're going to do that 2 more times. So next stitch back loop, slip stitch, next stitch back loop, slip stitch. So 3 slip stitches in the next 3 back loops. Then you're going to turn your project and you're going to do half double crochets in the back loop only across your ribbing. So that will be 10 total half double crochets in the back loop. Again, speeding through just to get to the end for you. All of this is in the pattern. Make sure you don't forget that last stitch and you get all 10. Then we're going to turn our project, and in the same stitch you're in currently, you're going to do a single crochet. So insert your hook in the back loop, pull loop through, yarn over and pull through, and you're going to do single crochets in the back loop all the way across. Again, you should have 10 total. Always double check that you're not dropping a stitch. So here's me just double checking that I have 10 total stitches, and then we're going to go into the back loop of the next stitch on the stocking, do a slip stitch, and repeat 2 more times. So back loop, slip stitch, back loop, slip stitch. turn your project and then go back to doing back loop only half double crochets across your ribbing. And you should have 10 total half double crochets if you are keeping count and not adding or dropping stitches. So that's what the ribbing looks like. I will go around and meet you at the join. So for the join, you'll have all of the slip stitches in those back loops, so there should be no stitches left. You're going to line your two sides up and you're going to go in the back loop of the half double crochets and the loop that's left of that original chain that you did to start the ribbing, and you're just going to do slip stitches. So this is just me showing you how to do that. Again, this is a tips and tricks video, not a full-blown tutorial for this pattern. If you do not have this pattern, it is available on my Etsy shop as a low-cost PDF. And this video is to go along with that pattern to help you through some of the trickier parts. So I am just finishing connecting my ribbing. I am going to note here all the important timestamps for this tips and tricks video so that you can refer back to it if you need. If you have any questions, please be sure to either comment them below or message me directly. You can message me on Instagram or my Facebook. If you don't have this pattern yet, the link is in the description.